If the slight side part hasn't given it away, I'm a millennial. I'm a parent of 2 Gen Alpha kids, and I have to admit, I've been watching with my popcorn this drama unfolding recently online of Gen Z calling us out on our terrible parenting.
I need everybody else in my generation to promise that we are not going to raise iPad children.
Don't give a baby an iPad because you're lazy. Oh, did I hurt the millennials' feelings? I'm so sorry. Listen, here's the thing. Your kid can't read.
Gen Z is going to be better parents than millennials. No, because we've seen how Gen Alpha is basically doomed, right?
It feels like a lot of these parents are trying to find an easy way out of parenting, so they handed their kids iPads to make them shut up.
A lot of your guys' kids are displaying the exact same behavior as each other.
Jokes about what they believe to be gentle parenting, which we're gonna get into.
The elder millennials, they are raising a generation of out-of-control little children. There is a specific style of parenting that I think is negatively impacting Gen Alpha, and it is called gentle parenting.
Oh, my eye!
Oh, did my child just throw a fork at your face?
Yes!
Denver, buddy. Mommy loves you. I can sense something made you really upset.
No
buddy,
shit. Threw a fork in my eye!
Okay.
These kids are growing up thinking that all of their feelings are valid, meaning that their entitlement to wanting something or wanting to do something supersedes the needs of other people around them trying to do something similar.
And the impact of excessive screen time.
Mackenzie!
I'm not even trying to be funny, but these kids are... I'ma just say this. I teach 7th grade, they are still performing on the 4th grade level.
Watching so many teachers coming out about all the issues they're dealing with Gen Alpha kids. It's been very eye-opening.
Yesterday, Aiden told me I'm a stupid bitch and I have no guy at. I don't even know what that means.
Millennials are raising a terrorist group.
Having to teach and work with you guys as children has been the most traumatic experience of my life. They don't respect any authority. You ask them, can you stand in your designated spot? They're telling you no and shut up.
Teachers who have taught their entire lives are just up and quitting their jobs now because they can't handle these kids anymore. This generation as a whole is having reduced attention span and concentration. They spend less time socializing in person, and this one I've seen the most with the kids in my life is less development of creativity and imagination. And they just want to sit on their iPads and watch Netflix and play apps and games.
Some of y'all are finally starting to believe us when it comes to how much we've missed the mark on raising these kids right.
This video is not just going to be a defense of millennial parents take, I promise, because the research I did when I got the idea for this video literally led me to clamp down on my son's screen time. I'm proud to say we're now down to 1 hour a day. Tips to come later in the video if you are also dealing with parental burnout, from juggling parenting minus the village with earning money with general life admin. Perhaps you also have relied a bit too much on every millennial's favourite co-parent.
Take it out, take it out, take it!
So yes, buckle up. We are going to dive into parenting styles, the effects of iPads on small children. I hope you have your favourite PJs on and get yourself a snack. Stole that from her, go follow her. My YouTube homepage recently served me up a video by Candace Owens, who is a conservative political commentator, and it was titled How Gentle Parenting is Ruining Your Kids.
Everybody has a feeling. They somehow think that they are not required to ever be sad.
In this video, Candace conflates her interpretation of gentle parenting with basically the impact of screen addiction in kids. I don't know about yous, but I'm seeing this non-stop on my social media. Just so much piss-taking about gentle parenting.
Trying gentle parenting. Bubby, please stop doing that. Okay. Quit! Get away from it now!
From the same algorithm that is serving up video after video of teachers who are really struggling with the behaviour of Gen Alpha kids, linking it to their screen use, and then often linking that to gentle parenting. Not all teachers, I should say. There are definitely teachers out there recognising positive changes in these kids too.
We were told to shut up and get on with it. We have all kinds of suppressed trauma from the systems that raised us. So Gen Alpha, they're aware, I think, a lot more of what is causing them harm, and they're not playing, which I think is quite good, really. I think it's a lot healthier. I think it does mean that we as the adult need to change our approach. It's really interesting.
The emotional intelligence that some of these kids have, right? Like, I feel like they're being raised by a generation of parents that just, like, you know, have been to therapy, are breaking those generational trauma cycles, you know, ending it with them. And it really shows in some of these kids. Like, just the other day, 2 of my students were having an argument, right? And before I could even step up and intervene, kid 1 turns to kid 2 and just goes, listen, it sounds like you've got a lot going on, and I feel like maybe you're putting some of that on me, and I don't think we should have this discussion until we can both be calm about it. And So
we're gonna start today with some definitions. You know, I love a definition. I'm a writer, I have a degree in education. Words are important to me, especially on this topic, because I love gentle parenting and there's so much misunderstanding around it, which is leading to a lot of confusion and to people thinking that treating children like real human beings and being comforting and compassionate during times of upset, that basically this treatment can't coexist with rules and consequences.
Let's break down this video.
Audrey, can you close that, please?
Mom is doing fine here. This is what toddlers do.
Close it.
When dad perceives all of this normal toddler behavior as disrespect and then proceeds to be disrespectful to the child by screaming and cussing at them.
Get the out of the freezer!
Do you notice what the kid did here? They shut down. Now the comments are like, see, the dad is the reason that the kid got out of there, but they weren't. If you pay attention here, look. It's mom grabbing her by the arm and getting her out of there that still gets the child to do the thing.
If you think your options are 1, to bark at your kids like this,
get the out of the freezer,
or like other option being let them do whatever they want, you're wrong.
Could mom have used some gentle parenting tools here? Sure. She could have turned it into a game. I wonder how fast we can close the door and go into the living room. Ready, set, go! She could have identified the underlying need. Are you feeling hungry? What are you looking for? Maybe I can help you. She could have offered her a choice. Either you close the door or I'll close the door. And if she chooses not to close the door, then you pick her up and you close the door for her and you take her into another room and do something else.
3 main categories of parenting have been identified by researchers. Let us illustrate them in the most millennial way possible. Through Harry Potter reference, of course. Authoritarian parenting. Think the Malfoys. They've high demands of their kids, little to no warmness. It's giving boomer parenting. Look, we can use Gen Z phrases too, okay? Next, we've got permissive parenting. Think the Dursleys with their son Dudley.
I want everything to be perfect.
How many are there?
36. Counted them myself.
36, but last year I had 37!
This is what we're going to do, is that when we go out, we're going to buy you 2 new presents.
High warmness, but little to no demands. It's giving entitled and demanding 5-year-old Karens. With Harry, the Dursleys are a mix of authoritarian and also uninvolved/neglectful, which is another parenting style cited by some. But the third, and this is the big one we need to talk about, is authoritative. My life goals, the Weasleys.
Where have you been? Bed's empty, no note, car gone. You could have died. You could have been seen.
Mummy, have you seen my jumper?
Yes, it was on the cat. Your sons flew that enchanted car of yours to Surrey and back last night.
High warmness and high demands. It's giving functioning human beings. Research has repeatedly shown that children of authoritative parents, so these are people who are super nurturing, but they set really firm limits. Those kids tend to be more happy and capable, more successful, and Molly and Arthur Weasley are a great example of authoritative parenting because they hold their children accountable for their actions, but they're extremely loving and close to their children.
Oh, and Ginny, dear, congratulations on nicking Gryffindor. Your father and I are so proud.
We'll circle back to gentle parenting because it's almost identical to authoritative parenting in terms of how it's defined and practiced. That's not me just farting out my mouth making stuff up. That's according to Sarah Rockwell Smith, who is regarded as the founder of the gentle parenting movement. I love her.
The best way to make a child calm down is if we ourselves are calm. And I think that's what a lot of parents struggle with because, you know, the world at the moment is so difficult and we're full up to here. And what happens when we scream and yell and we join their tantrums, they look to us as a role model when they copy that.
She sums up gentle parenting in 4 words: empathy, respect, understanding, and boundaries. Gentle parents might focus a little bit more on, hearing our kids, understanding why they do what they do, actually learning and self-educating about what's normal and expected at different developmental stages. So like sleep is a big example of this. There's just ridiculous expectations of infant sleep, their ability to regulate emotions, all that stuff. Yeah, gentle parenting, it falls under the umbrella term of authoritative parenting, and facts are facts. It's widely regarded as the most effective parenting style. So why are so many people shitting on gentle parenting, thinking it's the same thing as permissive parenting, which is being reluctant to impose limits on your kids? They're not the same thing. Fair enough going on TikTok and having your issues with permissive parenting because there's been a lot of negative impacts associated with that. That's all documented, but stop tarring gentle parenting with that brush. I'm including here some examples of permissive parenting, which is basically what a lot of people are talking about in all these TikToks. I'll read out this one. So when your kid hits another kid at the park, you say, "I see you're frustrated, but we don't hit." When they hit another kid, you repeat the same statement, but you don't take any other action. The reason this is permissive is because this response conveys warmth and empathy, but it doesn't provide a consequence for the child, like removing them from the play area until they demonstrate they can play safely with others. And while there are some good things about permissive parenting, because the parents are warm and welcoming, loving, they're going to have a great relationship with their kids and stuff, the downsides are pretty bad. Because permissive parents don't clearly set or enforce rules and boundaries, kids may struggle to understand what's expected of them and how their actions cause consequences, which can make them feel like the world is unpredictable and chaotic, and that can fuel anxiety and control issues. There's evidence of increased risk of substance abuse, difficulty working through negative emotions, trouble making decisions. But yeah, boundaries in gentle parenting, huge, capital letters. But how you go about upholding the boundaries is based on where your child is at developmentally.
Teach your kids the words pretend and gentle. Pretend works with biting. Pretend, and then they'll go. Also gentle hands, same thing. Can you show me gentle hands? And he'll just on the couch. That helps with hitting. It is repetition. It is consistent corrective action. Put yourself between the toddler and the baby. Not giving your child the opportunity to mess up when it is developmentally appropriate for them to mess up. That's really what I do. Instead of giving Sam a Hot Wheel when he's 3 feet from Hazel, I'll give him a stuffed animal. So that way, if he does throw it, it doesn't hurt her.
And yeah, look, don't think I'm saying there's such thing as a perfect parent. There isn't. Even people who give their blood, sweat and tears to the role of being a parent, they're not going to be their best selves all the time. But there is such a thing as bad parenting.
Me. You will sit there.
Intimidation is not the one. Like, if you find yourself reacting like this regularly...
You do not scream in this house! You will not talk to me that way! I told you to stop touching the baby while you're sick. If she gets sick, it's going to be your fault.
You should offload that frustration on a therapist so you don't feel like you have to offload it on your tiny developing human. For a long time now, I've used BetterHelp, who are sponsoring this portion of the video. That's BetterHelp, HELP, and I'm a much better parent for it, let me tell you. They are 100% online. They're the world's largest therapy service. I have a link under the video, and if you want to get started with them, you just answer some questions. It lets them know what your needs are and your preferences for therapy, and then they can tap into their network of 30,000 different therapists to find someone who is a perfect match for you to help you with your specific issues. Tailored therapy people. It's great having someone who specializes in what you need them to be specialized in. I wanted somebody who is very experienced with dealing with parental family stuff. I don't just talk about parenting crap, I also talk about all of my childhood crap and how that's shaped me for better and for worse. Because I have small kids, the best thing I find about BetterHelp is that I can text the therapist anytime, and I can schedule a weekly live video call with them at my own convenience, or I can do it by phone if I'm not wanting to brush my hair. And if you find that your therapist isn't a perfect match for you, you can change to a different therapist at no additional charge. That is just impossible to do with real life therapy. Just easily swap and switch. There's huge waiting lists here where I live anyway, and not many options. So that's another amazing thing about this service and why I 100% recommend them to everyone. You know, like parenting burnout, it's real. I know. 2024 life is pretty anti-parent and anti-child and anti-family. One very clear example of this is that in my county, a couple who are looking to buy a 3-bedroom house would have to, apparently, this was in the papers, they would have to have a combined income of €127,000 a year. That fact alone makes it borderline impossible for a lot of Gen Alpha parents to become homeowners, and it can cost even more per month to rent than it would to pay back a mortgage. Lots of these parents are living at home with their parents, are often living very far away from their support networks like siblings or close friends due to, you know, housing access, financial issues. With the hamster wheel of parenting and working and cleaning and cooking and self-care, like, it leads to stressed out parents who, may hand a kid an iPad so they don't turn into a barking lunatic. There's so much context left out of these TikToks. Like, there'll be a little reference made to like, oh, if only you had kids and then you'd understand. But like, there's so much to talk about here, okay? Some of these parents had boomer parents, right, are trying to not repeat patterns of like roaring at their kids and stuff. And they're out here working hard, trying to regulate their own emotions, model behavior to their kids.
Go finish breakfast first. Go finish your breakfast first. No, ma'am, you're not listening. Can we make sure our listening ears are on? Focus. If you don't eat breakfast, you know what's gonna happen? You're not gonna be able to grow big and strong, and you're not gonna have any energy to play all day. Do you listen?
Have I turned to Miss Rachel in times of desperation to get the cleaning done without having a stroke? Yeah.
I thought back on previous generations on how did they do this? How were they able to manage a toddler and a baby and be overly exhausted and not give their kids any TV? What am I doing wrong? So I called my grandma, a mother of 7, and I asked, how on earth did you do it back then? And she said times were different. People weren't isolated in their homes the way they are now. She knew all her neighbors and there was a lot more of a community.
Thing is though, just because this shit is hard, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to understand, firstly, how different parenting styles impact kids, but also how a lack of boundaries around screen time, like giving them just unlimited access, how this can impact our kids.
And they're demons. They're little fucking demons. Because if you take it away, it's like a pacifier. Like, they hold on to those things like actual pacifiers.
We can and should always aim to be better and to do better. We have to do better, especially when it comes to permissiveness around their interactions with technology. Because look, if a lot of parents out there are being super permissive in the belief that they are gentle parenting just because, you know, they might have seen a few TikToks about gentle parenting is really good for your kids, and then they hear the word gentle and they think, oh, I don't want to be the source of tears and tantrums, and like my child is demanding my phone and I'm saying no and they're losing their mind, so here's the phone. If that's the case, if lots of people are parenting that way, we are all in trouble. Yes, because kids, I learned this at uni, like, kids are not only socialised through their families. One of the reasons we send them to school in the first place is to be socialised. There's definitely a lot more people choosing to homeschool because of all of this stuff that's coming out on like TikTok and all that. But we send them to school to get socialised. Their peer group is a huge agent of socialisation in their lives. At uni, I studied how social groups reinforce norms, they communicate values and expectations. And so if we have kids behaving so bad that these teachers are literally like quitting on the spot, the sad reality is that no matter what you and I do in the house, you know, all that is going to be impacting our kids as they move through life. It's clear as day when you look at research that having low expectations and demands of your kids at home can lead to them having less self-discipline and them doing worse in school situations and stuff, like getting into more trouble, more fights, and the more that's normalized in school settings, basically the more contagious certain behaviors will become. Our culture is quite individualistic rather than collectivist. So instead of all of us working together as parents to create harmony in our community, we see people and, like, you know, our kids as being independent and needing to be independent, and it's all just really hard to navigate while you're parenting when you realize that actually no, these kids are shaping each other. Timmy goes to school and all his friends are standing around staring down at phones out in the yard. Is Timmy going to be curious about what's on that phone, even though his mum and dad will not give him a phone no matter what he does or says? So he like hates their guts. Like, this is a new problem. This is not something that older generations ever had to deal with. One of my favourite poems is No Man is an Island, and it argues that we all need each other. You know, we're better together than we are in isolation. Every individual person is one piece of a greater whole. So yeah, I think we should be thinking about how our kids will impact other kids, the ripples they're gonna put out there. There was one TikTok I saw that went crazy viral all over the internet. I'll play some of it here. It has sparked enormous conversation online.
I just saw a TikTok from some millennial, and she was like, here's a message to Gen Z. You might make fun of us, but watch out. We're raising the next generation, and they're gonna eat you up. Your kids can't read, okay? You're raising Gen Alpha. They're bizarre and terribly behaved. Y'all bred iPad children. You have been shoving media and screens in these kids' faces since birth. They probably have no imagination because their brain hasn't actually been forced to come up with any original thought. Gen Z, please, when we are older, don't give your kids iPads at the dinner table. If I'm older and I have my kids and I bring them to a restaurant and I see fellow parents at the table next to me and their kids have iPads at a restaurant in public, what? I'm gonna scream. Because what the hell is that? Can you not make your child behave for more than 5 seconds that they can live without an iPad for dinner? Can you not give your child enough attention and like actually converse with them and like teach them things and have conversations? Why do you have to just give them an iPad to make them shut up? Why are they even there then? What are you doing? What is your parenting style? People are gonna come at me and be like, oh, you're 21. What do you know about being a parent? I don't know. I look at kids and they're like terribly behaved. I saw a TikTok of a girl talking about how she was a summer camp for a bunch of like Gen Alpha kids, and they were like the most poorly behaved kids she's ever seen in their entire lives. We have to right a wrong, guys. We have to make our kids normal, please.
I just love that he's saying all this to a phone. It's just beautiful, beautiful irony. But no, I'm joking. I hear him, I do. I have a lot to say too. But I hear him. Impact on language development, you know, attention spans, real valid concerns. But first things first, there's actually very little evidence to support the theory that digital screen use alone is bad for young children. How we set rules around it and whether or not we are actively engaged in exploring the digital realm together, it turns out that these things are actually much more important than just how much screen time a kid is having. Not that I don't care about that. Obviously, like, I've worked to try and limit my son's screen time just because I'm a bit of a stickler for guidelines. Like, I like having a goal to aim for. Like, the guidelines say that babies should get no screen time. The guideline for over 2 years old is an hour a day. That's it, an hour. And apparently these kids are getting hours and hours and hours of screen time a day. And obviously that's going to affect, you know, how physically active they're being. It's going to affect their nighttime routine, like winding down for bed. I know myself, if I go on my phone in my bed, close my eyes, I literally can just see, it's like my brain is like a computer and I can just see all this stuff like flicking in my brain. It's like billions of faces all blending into each other like I'm hallucinating. I can imagine if a kid was on an iPad in bed, it would just fry their head. But back to this guy's TikTok for a minute. As I think it's important to say this, I'm now on my second toddler and I have new feelings about taking very young kids to nice fancy restaurants. Like, he talks about this, but it's a really unnatural environment for a child. And they are going to be super overstimulated. They're going to want to go around looking at everything. Kids are naturally loud. They like to play and talk loudly. And in my opinion, a lot of the tactics you would need to use to get a little child, like a 2-year-old we're talking, to sit still and be quiet for like an hour and a half in a restaurant with no screen. Those tactics ain't going to be good.
One more sound and you'll wish you'd never been born, boy.
Like a 4 or 5-year-old, fine. They probably, by that point, have learned some table manners through your boundaries, your gentle parenting. But now, obviously, there's probably some kids who just have that kind of temperament where they would just sit and chill. But, like, that's not most kids. So if you're at home with one of those unicorn kids, don't be judging people with the iPads and the phones. Of course, us parents want a break from our monotonous routine of child rearing sometimes and to go to a nice restaurant, and it can be hard to find someone not only that you like trust with your kids but who is willing to take them. And have I brought a kid to a restaurant and given them my phone with a YouTube video playing on it? I have done that, yes, but I have learned my lesson. We basically now we don't bring our kids to fancy nice restaurants. We go to child-friendly places like the food segment in our local hardware shop, which is very loud and has loads of room for kids to kind of walk around while they're waiting for food, and just loads of other kids there, and it's child-friendly. You're not annoying people who, they're out to celebrate something, they've saved up their money. It's such a privilege to be in a lovely restaurant and like you're all dressed up, and maybe you don't even have kids. Maybe this is just like your little moment to unwind after a grueling week of crazy work or university exams, and then you can just hear like Cocomelon. To be clear, I do not tolerate Cocomelon. We know this. PSA for parents, you don't have to endure Cocomelon. I control what my kids see. You control what your kids see. Some kids are seeing this shit.
I was watching YouTube with my little brother the other day, and he was like, can you put on Skibbity Toilet? And I was like, what the fuck is Skibbity Toilet? And he put it on. This is Skibbity Toilet. Is this not fucking terrifying?
Please monitor what your kids are looking at. You hold the power here, not that terrifying toilet face. Oh my fucking god. I'd just rather wait until my kids are older or like, we don't have them with us to go places like that, instead of just putting a screen in front of them and annoying staff, annoying other customers, annoying myself, because like I don't want to spend money to be in a situation like that. But maybe more of us just need to, listen to this guy. What I think about anyway, when I heard this TikTok first, when I watched it, I was thinking more about when I'm out for a walk and I see a little kid in a buggy with their parents' phone, and they're just like doing this with their finger and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and they're not looking around. Like, it's such a good opportunity to learn about the world and to really like watch different interactions and how things work. And I think of little kids watching screens in cars and just not having that opportunity to learn to tolerate boredom, or to watch the world going by, to escape in thought, to just get lost in song. I've often mentioned, I think, that the TV was on a lot when I was a kid, haven't I? So yeah, the TV was on all day when I was a kid, and it did me no harm. Like, that's not the whole picture. Plus, I hate when old people say, I was smacked, but it did me no harm. Look at me, I'm fine. The whole picture of the TV being on all the time is this. There were a few channels, a lot of really crap shows that wouldn't hold my interest. I'd go off and play, or I'd draw pictures, whatever. We'd a few videotapes. You'd have to literally rewind them to get them back to the start, and sometimes the tape would come out and get stuck in I sound like such an old granny bitch. Really though, imagine it. There was no Netflix, no Disney Plus, no Prime, no Now TV. Most importantly, there was no social media and no YouTube where anyone can post mindless, creepy, trash videos of Elsa and Spider-Man kissing, Like, I know I earn a living from this website, but please, for the love of fuck, monitor what your kids are watching, because these algorithms are insane, guys. They're insane. Just an example of why it's so important to monitor. Our son loves this show. It's Leo the Truck on YouTube. And it is quite good. It's like fairly educational, right? But sometimes, like, if an episode finishes, the next thing that comes on is like this. So the algorithm will go straight on to like a toy unboxing video, which is fairly harmless. It's just some adult's hands opening loads of toys and driving them around. But like, I'd prefer him to be doing that himself, like playing with his own toys, than watching someone else play. But then the next thing that will come on will be like this. Animations made by just random people at home. And you might pop your head in and be like, oh, that's innocent enough. But give me that buttons. That's not for you. Like, what they're saying doesn't make any sense. Random words like, okay, nice. And just all sorts of mad stuff happening with these balls. Look. It's yellow. Oh, yes. Like, it's shite. And some of these weird chewing gum brain videos have millions and millions and millions of views. Yeah, also, when I was a kid, there were a lot of boring shows, a lot of crap, like ads, and it'd be on and I'd be getting dressed up in my costumes and I'd help my mum clean the house until something better was on later. Now everything is so on demand that they can have the exact thing that they want to watch like that. Whereas when I was a young kid, if I wanted to watch a certain Disney movie, you know, we'd have to go and rent it from the video shop and you'd have it for like a night. And I read a lot of books. I was allowed to go and play in the field with rocks and I'd just vanish off for hours with no phone to text my mom to tell her where I was. So I should never have really said that in the past as like a defense of why I was letting my kid have a couple hours of TV a day spread out over the day. I love movies, I love shows, and I feel like I have a pretty healthy relationship with screens, considering that my job is online. But what is important is that I didn't have a phone as a kid, I didn't have an iPad, and my childhood was packed full of pretend play where I could build my creativity. And even still, like most adults, I struggle with phone addiction. I'm seeing a lot of people talking about this at the moment on here.
When I go to pick up my phone to get on social media, 200 times a day. Anytime there's a lull in my life or mood or feelings or anything, I pick up my phone and I scroll social media.
Pedestrians walking across the street, they're not looking up at the light. You know, most of us check our phones 2,600 times a day. That is a statistic. 2,617 times a day.
Comment question, right? I want you to answer this in the comments. Do you find yourself using your phone because you're bored? Like, if you get bored, do you just reach for your phone on automatic? Let me know down below. Do you feel anxious if you forget your phone or you can't find your phone? And have you been able to reduce your daily screen time? Also share what your screen time is if you're brave enough. It's likely you're addicted, and like phone addiction has just become this like acceptable addiction, like the way smoking used to be, like the way vapes are right now, I suppose. They're not socially frowned upon. And so just think about it, like if adults are struggling with phone addiction, what chance do our children have if we don't set boundaries? If we, as a society, lean into permissive parenting. If those of us looking after children on a day-to-day basis don't set firm limits on their screen time, we're setting our kids up for a big struggle, because screen addiction has been shown to have serious negative effects. Cognitive, psychological, physical even. My husband and I always talk about this, but we always see groups of guys or girls even just like walking home from school together, and you know, we'll think about back when we were teenagers and you'd be doing that and having a chat about who fancies who and you know, whatever happened in school that day, and they're all looking down at their phones while they're walking together. So like they have that physical need for closeness, and like they're choosing to walk home together instead of to walk home on their own, but they're looking at their phones and they're not saying a word to each other. We were parked in traffic one day and I watched this group of guys and just not say a word to each other for minutes. People are out there texting each other from within the same house instead of just going into the next room, you know? Parents are coming online talking about their kids having these unbelievable tantrums if, for example, they refuse to turn on the telly or hand over their phone so the kid can scroll through their phone. And because they want peace immediately because of all of the burnout and all of the stuff I talked about earlier, you know, they're not thinking about what's best long term and just holding strong and riding it out, because they don't know that it's not going to be just constant tantrums forever, which it isn't. Like, kids adapt very quick. Yeah, these parents are like posting themselves crying and they're turning to permissiveness. These are things that we've done recently that have massively changed the dynamic in the house and just like I don't know, I just feel like it's been a huge positive shift for my family. So number one, we stopped allowing our son primarily to eat in front of the TV. Our 1-year-old, she was never put in front of screens to like eat or anything like that, because we learned from our mistakes the first time. She just eats whatever, whenever. But initially when my son was a baby, I realised that he would eat more if I had a screen like playing. The way I reasoned with myself at the time was that, well, I like to watch TV when I'm eating my food, and that's true. That is still true. When they're asleep, I still do that if I haven't had dinner yet.
Old habits die hard, old habits die hard.
He was quite fussy with foods as well. Like I had all that, you know, first time parent worry about like, what if he isn't full? What if he's hungry? So got in that habit, noticed he'd eat more if distracted by the screen, but turns out that's just a lovely smooth road to compulsive overeating town. And I don't know why, I was really going against a lot of what I learned about intuitive eating in my eating disorder recovery, and now we have breakfast, lunch and dinner at the dining table. Well, the kids do anyway. We don't always all eat at the exact same time, but if I'm serving food to the kids, I'll just make a bit extra and I'll like pick at what they're eating as well, so like it feels like a family meal. Or we'll have our food and then they'll have some of our food. It's been really hard for me to get used to just like playing music and eating, but I love it. It is so nice. It is so lovely. It's like a real mindful experience, and we have a little chat, and dinner time, just meal times have just become this thing I get excited about, like an event, and I want to start like lighting candles and just making it into this thing. Number two, we made our living area less TV centric, and we are in a process of renovating our house, but I do think anyone can do this with just like moving their furniture around. We had a big old recliner pointed directly at the TV, and so sitting on that felt weird. If the telly wasn't on, it just felt really weird. We wanted our fireplace and my husband's radiogram, and we've a speaker and stuff over there as well, a record player and lots of records. Like, we wanted that to be more the focus of the room. So we have changed it to 2 couches facing opposite each other, which is so much better just for like conversation with guests and stuff, but especially just as a family room. Now it serves us so much better and our goals and how we want to parent our kids. More talking and connection and interaction, less screens. Number 3, we read even more.
When he finished his supper, the giant bellowed, "Bring me my hen." His wife brought a little hen and put it on the table.
I love reading books to my son at nap time and bedtime, and I always have since he was little, but we've started just reading as like, you know, an activity, a thing to do. It doesn't have to be just reserved for certain times a day. My kid is playing more often by himself, I've noticed, and our conversations are just so much more interesting. 4, we plan media use ahead of time. So we'll like pick a movie and say we're going to watch half of that movie later before dinner or whatever, instead of just it being like, I want to watch Spidey now. And I'm trying to cut down on the more kind of just like mindless stuff and just have it, you know, either a lovely story or just strictly something educational. 5, we will watch it together most of the time now. Like, I'll stop what I'm doing and watch it with him, rather than it being a thing where I'm putting it on so I can do something else. I'm just trying to let my kids be bored or come up with their own things to do while I do my chores. Now look, there were times where I desperately needed screen time, like when my 1-year-old was a newborn and I was breastfeeding her to sleep and stuff. It was so helpful to have the screens to rely on. So like, there are times where, you know, you don't have that village immediately on hand all the time. You do what you gotta do. We'll talk about what we're watching. We'll take inspiration from it for like games we're gonna play based on, you know, the scene in the movie, and he loves doing that. Rather than just wanting to watch it, he's like, you know, observing it, taking stuff and like doing that in real life. Lastly, we talked to him about screen time in general, and even though he's only 3, just like the way he can understand and is trying to understand anyway why he can't eat chocolate for all of his meals, he's capable of understanding why we can't just have it on all day. No matter how young your child is, talk to them about the quality of the screen time, talk to them about different kinds of content, the benefits of screen time, which there are some, but like also the negative aspects. That dialogue is so important because they are going into a very screen heavy world, and this is their childhood. I try and think of every day with that in the back of my brain, like, this is not just today for me as I'm experiencing it, this is my child's childhood. I think about my childhood, these are the moments that are going to make that up for him, and like, how do I want that to look? So yeah, it's not been an easy, quick, overnight transition, but it did need to happen for us, and I just feel a lot better about it, to be honest. But anyway, there's been a lot in this video. Obviously, I have so many thoughts. My thoughts and opinions on this stuff are constantly evolving. Please talk to me in the comments. I love chatting to you about all of this stuff. I've hammered on enough, but I'm going to reply to as many of you as I can. So farewell, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you again in the next video, probably with more Harry Potter references. Maybe I'll keep the side part going. Definitely need to dye the grey hair.